You know, it really doesn't matter what the media write as long as you've got a beautiful, young piece of ass. Macy's stores suck, and they are bad for the United States of America. If Hillary Clinton can't satisfy her husband, what makes her think she can satisfy America? All right, here's the thing. Presidents don't say things like that normally. So we've got to ask ourselves, how does someone say stuff like that and then become the president of the United States? So here's the thing. I think whether you guys like Donald Trump or whether you hate him, we can all agree that Donald Trump is one of the most significant rhetorical occurrences in recent history. So obviously, since he's so significant, during the campaign, academic scholars, rhetoricians have all congregated to come up with a theory to understand him, right? No, not exactly. The thing is, academics have largely failed to, they've neglected to acknowledge Trump. The only time that they do acknowledge him is to critique Donald Trump. And here's the thing, there are definitely many ways in which we can critique Donald Trump based on what I just read. But before we critique Donald Trump, we've got to understand what he's doing that actually works. So that's a rhetorical analysis that needs to occur, and that's a rhetorical analysis that I want to give you just a bird's eye view of in the next few minutes. So this is my argument. If you're not familiar with these terms, they're cut off a little bit. I'll give you a full rundown in just a minute. But my argument is this, that Donald Trump has fully shifted the emphasis of presidential rhetoric from the deliberative branch of oratory to the epideictic branch of oratory. And he's made this shift possible through three things: populism, parrhesia, and a macho ethos. So I want to go through each of those and show you exactly what Trump has done. So in classical rhetoric, there were three branches of oratory. The first one was deliberative, and that had to do primarily with policy. The second one was judicial, and that was exclusively dealing with law courts. And then the third one is epideictic, and that has to do with praising and blaming. So in order to analyze Trump, we can do what philosophers call a disjunctive syllogism, or what you guys might call process of elimination, to see which of these Trump uses. So all presidents in the past have focused their rhetoric on deliberative oratory. They've talked about policy, right? Although some of them have probably used epideictic and judicial a little bit, the emphasis has been on deliberative. But Donald Trump says that his voters don't really care about policy. They care about getting the guy in the office that's going to do the job. So Donald Trump basically says he doesn't use deliberative. There's more where that comes from. Okay. Also, Donald Trump doesn't use judicial, really. Besides his supporters saying that they want to lock Hillary up, like no one really talks about any kind of judicial courtroom stuff in Trump's rhetoric. So it looks like Trump uses epideictic, but we can actually confirm that. So since epideictic is about praise and blame, Trump primarily blames politicians for what he perceives to be the negative state of America. And there's tons of examples. I just like going with this catchphrase: politicians are all talk and no action. Secondly, Trump praises, but he specifically praises himself. So if you look at this quote, he talks about, the top got cut off, but how great the wall will be and how inexpensive it will be. Another one, he talks about how beautiful the door in the wall will be, stuff like that. The point is that Donald Trump primarily praises his own skill and praises just himself in general to promote the semblance of his ethos and his credibility. So that's the first claim I make, the shift to epideictic. Here's the problem, though. Presidents in the past have tried to make the shift, and they've almost always been pushed back to using deliberative. And that's because what people call the deliberative constraints of the presidency. So people expect the president to talk about policy. Trump has broken through those constraints, and he's done that largely with those three things that I'm going to talk about. So let's start with populism. I don't think it's really controversial to say that Trump uses populism a lot. But in order to analyze populism, we've got to look at the last two presidents that used populism to an extent. Those are Andrew Jackson and Andrew Johnson. I'm not going to go into how each one used it exactly, but they basically present four characteristics of populism that we would expect to see in a populist candidate. I'm going to show you two of these today because I think they're specifically important. So the first one got cut off. It's audience interaction. So audience interaction is basically the idea that whenever a speaker's talking, he interacts with his audience. And Trump does this in two ways. So first, when someone says something negative about him, when there's a heckler in the crowd, there's an example where a guy screams, "Donald Trump's a bigot," and then Trump just goes, "Bye-bye," and he waves, and then people cheer and stuff like that. Whenever someone heckles him, Donald Trump responds. So he responds to negative feedback. He also responds to positive feedback. When his crowd starts chanting, "Lock her up," or "Lion Ted," or "USA," you see Donald Trump chanting into his microphone, "USA." It's really weird. The point is, he uses audience interaction. The second thing, and this is going to get cut off too, is extemporaneous oratory. And you'll notice I'm trying to mimic Trump in certain ways today. I'm trying not to use notes, so I'm trying to show you exactly what he does. So I actually went to a Trump campaign rally, and it was incredible, to say the least. And at one point during it, this is a picture of it, he read some crime statistics that were kind of negative for Costa Mesa, where the rally was. And then he takes this and goes, to hell with it, and he throws the script away, and then keeps talking. Here's why that's important. For populism, you're trying to represent people, right? You're trying to represent the people and show them that. When a speaker uses extemporaneous oratory, and when he interacts with the audience, it is an acknowledgement of the audience. And an acknowledgement of the audience is the first step to proving that you represent them. So that's a little bit about populism. I don't think it's really controversial, though, to say that Trump uses populism. So I'm going to focus on these next two, Parrhesia and macho ethos, because I think I'm going to get a lot of pushback on these. So the first one is Parrhesia, and I'm relying heavily on this book by Foucault. So some people will call Parrhesia frank speech, some people will call it truth-telling. Foucault lists 5 criteria that make up Parrhesia. Here's the problem. When you look at these, do any of these look like Trump might not have them? I mean, maybe like right there. Here's the thing, it's not a partisan statement to say that Trump's claims don't always express true propositions. In The Art of the Deal, he says that he intentionally exaggerates claims in order to play to people's imaginations. So it looks like Trump doesn't have truth. It looks like he can't use Parrhesia. It looks like my claim to Parrhesia is dead on arrival, right? I don't think so, and I think I can prove why. So, side note, I really dislike Foucault. I'm sorry if that offends anyone. And I'm going to take like 30 seconds to bash him, so if you'll just deal with me for a second, we're going to get back, I promise. So he says this weird thing about truth, and I don't know what it means exactly, but I'm trying to be charitable when I interpret him. So it seems like his quote is saying that it doesn't make sense to say that someone just has truth. I think what he's saying is the person needs to have knowledge of truth. And according to philosophers, knowledge is a justified true belief. So here's the thing, we're going to get back to this in a second. These are the 3 parts of rhetoric. Pathos, which is emotion, logos, which is rationality, logic, and then ethos, which is credibility. And when we're talking about Parrhesia, we're down here. Here's the thing though, to get knowledge of truth, you have to have a justified true belief. And in order to justify your beliefs, you have to use rationality. You have to use logic. So it seems like if truth is going to be part of rhetoric, it's got to be up there with logos. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to say that truth is part of Parrhesia. And furthermore, the ancient Greeks didn't understand it that way. The ancient Greeks actually thought of Parrhesia as something a little bit like this. They saw it as 4 characteristics which when an audience saw it, they tended to think that the rhetor was telling the truth. That's a conception of Parrhesia that I think is useful, and that's one that I'm going to use to analyze Trump. So there's 2 aspects I'm going to look at today. The first one is frankness. And Foucault defines frankness as someone who says everything he has in his mind, he doesn't hide anything. So I want to give you an example of how Trump uses frankness. So this is going to be a video, and I'm hoping this is going to play with the audio. Let me give you a little bit of context. So what happens here is Donald Trump was critiquing one of his rival candidates, Ted Cruz, and he was saying that Ted Cruz wasn't eligible to be president because he was born in Canada. Someone questioned him why he did that, and here's his response.
Because that would have been much different.
Why now? Why are you raising this issue now?
Because now he's doing a little bit better. No, I didn't care before. It's true. No, it's true. He never had a chance. Now he's doing better. He's got probably a 4 or 5% chance.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
And by the way, these facial expressions summarize the entire campaign right there. So here's the point. When Donald Trump specifically addresses the campaign strategy that he's using, it's frankness. And people think that he's telling the truth because he's saying these things that seem so controversial. Okay, so that's the first one, frankness. The second one that I want to look at is danger. So Foucault defines danger as when a candidate, and specifically in politics, when a candidate risks losing popularity or he could incur political scandal. I think it's kind of obvious that Trump does both of these. I'm going to just give you 2 examples. I'm going to resist my urge to go further. So after Trump, some people called him sexist. Trump responded by saying, Megyn Kelly, the bimbo back in town, I hope not for long. And then later he retracted and said, I won't call her a bimbo, I'm just going to call her a lightweight reporter. The thing is, if people are calling you sexist, it's probably not a good idea to call a woman a bimbo. that risks incurring political scandal, and therefore that has the element of danger, and that appeals to some of Trump's audience. Here's another quick video. So this is one where, I don't even need to explain it, you'll just see.
He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee. Okay.
I love Brett Baer. He's like, okay. The point is that making a sexual joke on a campaign debate stage certainly seems like it would risk incurring scandal. As therefore, Trump has this element of danger, and that appeals some people. That's appealing to some people. Okay, so that's just an overview of Parisia. I have more to say on the other topics. If you guys have questions about those, I'm happy to talk about that more afterwards. Okay, so now the last thing I want to talk about is a macho ethos, and this one's going to be controversial, I know, so I'm going to slow way down on this one. So to understand what a macho ethos is, we can look at JFK, because a lot of people say that he was one of the last presidents with really a macho persona. So JFK gives us, his precedent, gives us 4 things to look for in a macho ethos. I'm only going to go through 2 of them today, because I think they're the most important. The first one is a lack of constraints. I think it's obvious that Trump does not feel constrained by political correctness based on some of the things we've looked at already. He's also not constrained by party, and I want to show you an example of this. So this is the first question asked during the first debate of the entire campaign last year of either party. And basically what Brett Baer is asking is, are any of you guys willing to pledge that you're going to support the Republican nominee? And here is Trump's response.
Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge.